I'm Brandon from BroBible. As you can probably tell from looking at me, I like beer. Specifically, I like craft beer. I like going to breweries with my buddies. I like new flavors, new tastes, new styles. I like beer that's an adventure. But more important than that, I like beer that's a story. I like beer that can open up a whole new world for you. For example, the world of a new sport that you've never heard of before.
Jai Alai is where it is. It's one of those best kept secrets.
Like the sport of Jai Alai. Cigar City Brewing's Jai Alai IPA is citrusy with 6 different kind of hops. It clocks in at 7.5 ABV. Just my style. As a beer guy, I knew that Jai Alai IPA was named after the sport, but I didn't know anything about the sport itself. So I flew to Miami to learn more by visiting Magic City Jai Alai, an organization that's working hard to keep the sport alive. Jai Alai is a sport that traces its origins back to the Basque country in Spain. It's played with a ball and 2 curved baskets, called cestas, that are attached to a player's wrists. The ball is called a pelota. It's smaller than a baseball and harder and heavier than a golf ball. The game is typically played on a 3-walled court, with players scoring points by throwing the ball into the front wall. There's no time limit, but the ball must stay in constant motion. You must use speed, agility, stamina, finesse, and read your opponent's body language. The ball is as hard as a rock and moving 100+ miles an hour. All the while, players have on very limited protective gear.
My name is Ben Gasson, born and raised in Miami, Florida, in Opelika. Went to University of Miami, played a little bit of ball, at least tried to. Got the word, being an ex-University of Miami student, so decided, hey, it allowed me to get back into something, in a competitive environment, so I thought, why not?
How did you learn to play?
7 months of training.
7 months?
7 months of training.
Oh my gosh.
And we needed, and to be real with you, we needed every single one of those months because my first week, I almost killed somebody.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I almost
That's crazy.
killed somebody. And like it teaches you, we needed that to learn to respect the ball and respect, what they call the form of the pulse.
Well, it's a dangerous sport, right?
Yeah, I got hit in the mouth. I thought I lost these 2 front teeth.
Oh my gosh, but you didn't.
No, but I ran off the court because all of this went numb all the way going back to my jaw.
There's also a pretty good reason why I haven't heard of Jai Alai, the sport, until I had Jai Alai, the beer. Wildly popular in Miami for decades in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's largely been a sport in decline. But back in the day, it brought huge crowds to grand sports palaces called frontons. In 1976, for example, a Jai Alai match featuring some of the best players in the world drew over 15,000 fans to the Miami Jai Alai fronton. The sport remained in some Florida casinos, though it took a backseat to other gambling endeavors like horse and dog track racing. Jai Alai was played as an exhibition sport in the 1992 Olympics, but it hasn't returned to the world stage since. But let's flash forward to 2022. Jai Alai's starting to have a comeback again. It's a classic comeback story with a little old-fashioned American business ingenuity. How did Magic City Jai Alai come to be? What's the story?
So if we go back about 8 years, we were managing Dania Jai Alai in Dania, Florida, up near Fort Lauderdale, and they were playing Jai Alai there, and it was primarily all players from the the Basque region of Spain. And I just asked them one day off the cuff, why are there no American players? And they don't grow up playing Jai Alai. American kids grow up playing baseball, basketball, football. I said, but you're telling me if I couldn't take some American athletes, decent athletes, maybe they never played Jai Alai before, couldn't I teach them? And they were all no. And then 3 years later, when we decided we were going to play Jai Alai here, I said, you know what? We're going to try it my way. We're going to go recruit athletes who had never played Jai Alai before. We're going to teach them to play the game of Jai Alai. And that's how we're going to get our professional players as opposed to the Spanish guys or the Basque players from Spain. And the first year they were indeed terrible. And I started thinking, maybe the guys were right that you can't, but by year 2 it was clicking, and year 3 one of our guys lost to the finals of the US National Championships, and then last year 2 of our guys won the doubles, 1 guy won the singles. So long-winded answer, but athletes are athletes and they can learn to play, I think, any sport if they take the time and the effort to do it.
I was born and raised here in South Florida.
Played football at University of Miami, got the opportunity in an email. It was actually funny, it was Ben, who was actually one of the ones that reached out to me because we played football at UM with each other, and he was like, hey man, you gotta go and check this out. And I was like, man, Jai Alai, I haven't heard about Jai Alai since I was in summer camp.
What was your position at U of M?
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver?
Yeah,
cool.
wide receiver.
So how did the skills of being a wide receiver, especially playing college ball, how did that translate to playing Jai Alai?
Well, of course, a wide receiver, hand-eye coordination was key. And in the sport, very key. Hand-eye coordination is very important, especially with how fast the ball is going, fastest ball sport. So I think the craziest transition was putting a cesta, that glove in your hand, and being able to catch it. You can't close your hand.
You're
like
used to
you
using your hands.
Right, and especially catching out in front of you. In this, you're trying to catch away from you. So that was a very different feeling, trying to get caught up into that, and then also catching and just throwing right away.
Can you explain some of the formats of Jai Alai and how, as a casual sports viewer, how you would approach watching it and starting to understand the sport?
So it's a little bit difficult because it's played in two different ways. It's almost like playing football or baseball or tennis with two different sets of rules. So we've packaged what we call head-to-head, H2H, and in its team format, we call it battle court. And it's just like tennis. You have to win 2 out of 3 sets to win a match. Each set is played up to 6 points, like 6 games in a tennis set. And we just think that people will catch on to it quicker, easier to identify, and the players stay out there until there's a winner and a loser. And I think that's what sports fans want to see. Somebody wins, somebody loses, very clear cut.
One notable Jai Alai player is Tanar Davis, a former professional football player who has a Super Bowl ring with the Indianapolis Colts. Let's back everything up to how you ended up playing Jai Alai.
So you want the long story or the short story? Football is a competitive sport, and it's certain plays you're mano y mano. Like I was a cornerback.
Yeah.
And if you go cover 1, you're 1-on-1 with your receiver, and then if you go cover 2, it's a team thing. But just to give an example of football, but Jai Alai, the only time you're with a teammate is in doubles, and you have to do your job, because if you don't, you end up losing the point. But the sport is fast, it's competitive, and as you saw yesterday and today, it's intense.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the sport.
Yeah.
Everyone asks me, if you could do it all over again, would you play football or Jai Alai? What I know about Jai Alai, and if the wages get better, I would choose Jai Alai before football, and only so because it's the sport, you can never master it, because you're gonna always go against 3 things: the ball, the court, and the opponent.
To grow the sport's audience, Magic City Jai Alai is being broadcast via TikTok live streams. It's a fun, behind-the-scenes look at the sport.
I think people have gravitated towards our content, especially on TikTok, because obviously, the sport is so strange and it's so niche and weird and unique, and it has all these nuances. And I think, TikTok is the perfect home for something like that. But I also think that we have such amazing personalities on our roster. All of our players are so competitive.
Gambling, without a doubt, remains a huge part of Jai Alai. In states like Florida, Jai Alai was actually the one ball sport people could legally bet on for the last 50 years. As more and more states in the United States adopted legalized sports gambling, there's a path for Jai Alai to have even more adaptation as bettors learn how much fun it is to gamble on the sport. So, how do you bet on Jai Alai? How, as a casual sports bettor, someone that's used to betting on football, basketball, etc., how do you gamble on Jai Alai?
So that's why we had to make a change and get away from pari-mutuels, because we're like, look, we're going after the mainstream sports fan. This is the guy who's got his fantasy football team, or every Sunday during football season, or Saturday college football. He's, you're gonna bet on, you're playing against me, and you're gonna be minus 150 and I'm gonna be plus 125, just straight up mano a mano. They bet on you 150 to win 100, they bet on me 100, I beat you by some miracle, 120.
So much fun.
It's a better way to do it. It's just an easier way for people to do it.
For a casual sports fan like myself, there's nothing like the thrill of a game paired with a delicious beer. Which brings us back to Jai Alai, the beer. So, why did Cigar City Brewing name an IPA after the sport? Joey Redner, the founder and CEO of Cigar City Brewing, explains why the beer was named after the sport. I thought that the game nicely encapsulated the spirit of American hoppy beers. Over the top, borderline aggressive, and yet still full of nuance.
I created the beer because I wanted to emulate, like the feeling of what it would be like to drink Tampa culture, and that was produced in March of 2009. And it's also an IPA that focuses on tropical elements. Pineapple, mango, citrus are all big components of Jai Alai. I already saw the potential in the beer from the very beginning. I knew that the hop bill had a lot of potential.
Jai Alai has a long way to go, but it has a lot going for it. It practically came back from the brink of extinction. In fact, in 2023, it'll celebrate its 100th anniversary. As an optimist who got a chance to check out the Jai Alai experience firsthand, I think it's gonna make it. Cheers to that.